Diddle diddle.
What is going on, everybody? This is the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and set class in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
What you guys are about to listen to is a special thing.
Yeah.
This is the first time we have had a crowdsourced request for an interview. And you guys are about to hear a conversation from one of our longtime patrons, and also the talent behind the ever so iconic Cover Band Confidential bumper.
Yep.
So I would love to do like a nice flowery introduction, but to be perfectly honest, I really think this conversation just speaks for itself. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to us. Ladies and gents, our guest this week is one of our longtime patrons. I actually looked it up. He has been supporting us since January of 2020. So just as things were getting crazy,
Wow.
He hopped on board. He is the guitarist and band leader for the VAM Band out of Boca Raton, Florida, I believe. And is just one of the neatest guys we know. And honestly, a venerable celebrity in the cover band podcast scene.
It's true.
In general.
Yeah.
Adam Moskowitz. Welcome to the show.
And that's how you go from the outro bumper to the main event.
Hey!
Hey, there you go.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Like Adam said, I'm from the VAM Band in South Florida. It's my pleasure to be here with you, Adam and Dan. Thank you for having me on.
Always a treat. Listen, tell me this. VAM Band. We got to start there. Break it down. Where's that name
You
from?
want to know what it stands for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into that.
It's a story. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Let me leave you hanging just a little
holding
bit.
Teasing me. He's teasing me.
Find out what that stands for.
All right.
I'll break it down.
Fair.
So for those who may not be familiar, Adam has been a longtime contributor to the podcast. He's a guy who was sending in emails and asking questions. And one of the folks that has onboarded the information that we have talked about and built this very impressive operation.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where other members of the Patreon Slack community were like, you should have Moskowitz on the show because he's been able to pull all this stuff off. And we just want to know from his mouth the way that you guys would normally talk to other folks. This was something where it was a grassroots campaign that you did not campaign for at all. That people just were like, he's got something really cool going on, and we'd like to know more about it. So,
We should maybe also mention, he's also sent some letters into our friends at GigGab, and they've been impressed by that too. And they've talked about having him on, and much as we do love those guys, and we get Moskowitz first.
We got the scoop.
First claim. We're claiming him. You can have him next.
Let me jump in and just kind of set the scene for you guys, all right? So I've been a musician since I was 15 years old. I've been looking for a community of like-minded individuals, band leaders who are looking to move their projects forward in every capacity, in every way possible. And I've been on the Reddits communities. I've been on the Facebook groups. There's some juice there, but I just want to let the listeners know, if you're not part of the Patreon Slack community, just go ahead and give these guys a couple bucks because it's the best community that there is for musicians and band leaders because it's without all the BS. It's just like cool people talking about how their bands go through various different struggles. We all celebrate each other's wins. I've never met anybody in the group, but I feel greatly connected to both you, Dan, and Adam, and just like the whole crew. And I'll give a shout out to Jason Adler from the After 7 Tucson band. He's the one that sort of nominated me to come on the show here. And I've been a listener. I think I've heard all the episodes. And I just want to congratulate you guys on a very cool community, a supportive community. And just like all of us are of a similar age range where we're not stuck in old ways. We're looking to the future. We're embracing technology. We're focusing on our craft. We're just trying to have better production all the time. And a lot of the ideas that you guys have shared I have implemented in my band. My band is like almost the same age as your podcast. So all along the growth of my band, I have been greatly inspired to make certain moves and implement certain changes and philosophies that have gotten me to the point where I am today. Like I started from 0 band members, 0 fans as well, around the same time you guys started with 0 listeners. So now I can get into a little bit about like what my band is doing today, currently, right now. And then maybe we could like jump cut back to my beginning, and I could share, how I got here.
Sounds great.
My music career and everything. So
Yeah, so tell us about the VAM Band, its founding, and how you've kind of taken it to the level that it is today. And what are some of those
and
things?
what the name stands for.
yes,
Crying
now's the
out
time
loud.
to share that. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, what the name stands for. My wife and I started a business about 7 years ago, and I also do videography as like another side hustle to my side hustle of music. And my wife and I started this company called VAM Vid, like standing for videography, and we would do videos for weddings and make highlight videos for stuff. We did it for a few years. And then when the idea, like I was in another band, which I'll catch you all up on how I got to the band before I was in VAM Band. But when I was starting to think of a band name, that's one of the most difficult parts of starting a band. What is going to be the band name? Because there's so many options. There's so many that are already taken that are good ideas. You have to find the website, the social media. There's so much going on. So I wanted something unique. And I already had this business called VAM Vid. So what does VAM stand for? VAM. My wife's name is Victoria, Vicky. That's the V. My name is Adam Moskowitz, AM. So that's the origin.
Okay.
It's bringing my
It's a family affair.
It's a family affair, and I'm bringing my wife into the band with me, even though she doesn't perform with us. She is part of the ethos. I talk to her about it all the time, so much that she's like, I don't want to hear about your band today. Like, that's enough about your band. Let's just talk about something else, because I love this stuff. I love the craft. I love the improving of it. I love talking about it. And the letters VAM, they have now evolved. So now it stands for a second thing: very awesome music.
I wondered when I was guessing what it stood for. That was my guess. How about that?
That was your guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it has a dual meaning, and depending on my mood, I'll say different things on stage. But and maybe I'll come up with the third one too. I just think it's fun to know that it like is familial. And then also it has this very awesome music band is also a fun band name. So
Cool.
that's the origin story. And we don't really do the videography stuff anymore. I sometimes do it for other bands. I do it for my own band all the time. I have a couple cameras. I record almost every show. So the videography side of things I love to do. I love editing in Final Cut, but it takes a lot of time. And I sometimes, Adam, as Dan, is editing is pretty annoying. We try to automate as much as possible, but I love to do it. I love to create videos. It's something I made thousands of videos in my lifetime. During the pandemic, when gigs went away completely, I sort of went deeper into the video world. I got a green screen. I made all these cool music videos, little covers that I did. It was a lot of fun, just something to keep me musical when there was no shows happening. So that's the origins of the VAM. And what I do in VAM Band, I play guitar, I sing backup vocals, and I band lead. That's pretty much the most important role. I do everything A to Z, and then some. And what's unique about how I run the VAM Band, and I think a reason why I was, nominated to be here today, is that we have a lineup that is modular. So what that means is that there's no set lineup. There's me, and then I have a network of about 50 musicians on all of the various instruments. And on any date that I'm personally available as the band leader, I know that I can assemble a killer lineup around me on any date. And that has been proven out. I had one scenario on a Friday morning. I got a call from this booking agent, and he said, "Hey, the band for tonight canceled. Can you play?" And I said, "You know what? Give me a few minutes." I reached out to some of my people. Some of them are not available, but I have enough of a network where I was able to assemble a band for that night with less than 24 hours notice and play on stage that night. And that flexibility has been huge, so huge for my band, so huge for saying yes to opportunities. because that was my worst fear in the past, that we would get a great opportunity and then one guy is out of town or unavailable, and then you can't do the gig, and it sucks. It sucks to pass up opportunities. So part of that modular lineup for me was that I just want to be available to say yes, as long as I personally can say yes. So it takes a lot of organization, and I'll get into some more of those details a little later on. We have some questions from the Patreon. I actually posted earlier today, said, hey, ask me anything.
Yeah.
And they submitted a couple of great questions. So maybe we can get to those like towards the end of the show.
But I want to clarify one thing about that. We're not, so those of us who traditionally, like, I have 3 other people, individuals. They plus me are the band. We are those people, right? It's a very, very different model. One thing I want to clarify, you're not talking about subs here, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I actually don't use that word. It's semantics to me. Like, it's not a dirty word, but to me, we're just a collective. We're a family of 50 awesome musicians and vocalists.
Yeah.
And on any given date, I can pull based on location, based on type of show, based on availability. I can pull what I need based on budget also. You know, I can also grow the band in that way. Typically, we play as a 5 or 6 piece, but when the budget's there, when the stage size is there, I can grow up to a 10 piece at this point, because I also know horn players, percussion players, et cetera, and I can basically serve any client with what they need.
Yeah, it's amazing. But kind of to underline what I'm saying, like, you don't have subs because you don't have regulars. Right?
There are people, of course, that become my first call.
Sure. No, I imagine you have like an order of preference or something.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And even then, with the order of preference, sometimes I just want to bring new people into the circle.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, I'll share right now that I've been inspired by something that Adam's done, where you have members only, right? The 80s band. You have Can't Hardly Wait, 90s band.
Mm-hmm.
You have High Class Party Band. Is that the other one? And also Warped, the emo kind of pop punk band. So that's 4 bands. Are you in all of those?
I am in all of those bands. The goal is to not have to be, but currently, yes.
Right. So my goal, my big picture scenario, my vision for the VAM Band and why I've gone this route is that I eventually want to expand in having a VAM Band entertainment agency and have multiple groups. And I don't have to be in all of them. I also know guitar players, but typically I've been at every VAM Band gig as the only person. Everybody else has rotated around me, but I've been at every gig. And my vision, my bigger goal is to be able to have several bands and book them all and work them all and make an agent cut off of that scenario. So I've been inspired by you on that. I'm not there yet. I'm only at my 1 band, but the network of about 50 people, that's grown to be that way over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And let me just share a little bit about how I've come across these people, because I started on Craigslist. My initial lineup was 100% Craigslist. I didn't know anybody in the top 40 world, and I had to start with with what I could get. And I assembled an initial lineup enough to start playing shows, enough to start making promo. And with that material, I was able to get better shows and continue to build up the reputation of the band. And then as I would come across great musicians, I would take note. I would reach out. I'm big about connecting with people on Instagram and Facebook, musician groups, local musician groups. I'm big on just sending messages out. Hey, I'm a band leader of this band. I'm always looking for talent. If you're interested, check out our website, check out our sample set lists. Let me know if you're ever interested. I'll keep you. And I have on my phone, I put everybody's instrument in my contact name. So if I need a drummer, I just type drums in my contacts and the 12 people come up.
Nice.
And then I can determine, all right, the gig's in Miami, who lives near there. Because I don't want to make people drive 2 hours. I'm trying to think about all of these elements to make it easy for the people I work with. And we'll get more into that a little later. I try to make it as easy as possible for new people to come in the band. And I love the variety, both for myself as a musician that loves music. I love the unique spice that each musician brings to what we do. It's often the same songs or 75% the same songs, but each person brings something really special. And I love that. I really do. And also for our fans who come to see us at multiple shows, yeah, of course, there's something about a band that's played together for years, that's super tight, that you know their faces, you know their names. There's also something really cool about people who come to see our band multiple times and they get a unique show every time, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and it's also like by building such a wide network, you're increasing your kind of level of influence in your market.
Yes.
Because you become a person that not only people know, but they know who to go to get the kind of work that you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about when you're talking about band leaders, because when you're dealing with people who are hired guns, freelance guys and gals, is they think that they are the people, they're the one who can provide this unique thing, but they need people who to get them the shows. And so we're the people that have a little bit more juice in the game, because you're either getting the check or signing the check. And when you're doing that kind of work, that you have more influence.
Right. And just the sheer network of musicians so one other thing I do is I'm 100% transparent about this fact that the band is modular. I don't try to pull one over on our fans. I don't try to pull one over on agents or clients. I'm very clear. If they want to request somebody, they can definitely do that, and I'll try to get them as a first call. But what I promise is great entertainment every time. I don't promise it's going to be the exact same lineup. And I try to be clear with that, because most people, that is the way people know a band.
Yeah.
And they think, these 5 faces are the 5 faces that will be at every VAM Band show. And if it's not, it's a sub. I don't think that way. I think of it more as like a play, how they have understudies. I think of all of these players as understudies, and they all know my repertoire to some degree. And I'm really diligent about giving people, like, respecting my musicians' time. I think that's, and we don't rehearse at all. We did when the band was very young, before we got onto backing tracks. And maybe I should jump into that subject a little bit.
Before you do, there's one point I want to make before you do.
Yeah.
And that is that this whole thing proves the thesis that I have been pushing since episode 1, which is that there is no one right way to do cover bands. I promise there are people listening to this who are like, oh my God, I could never do that. That's just the wrong way to go. Oh, terrible. Or I can't, it's so different from how I think a band is. I can't even get my head around it. I don't know if they're judgy about it. Some
or
people maybe.
I don't think I could handle
the
anxiety of it being such a rotating cast of characters.
Or the organization it would take to, like, and what do you even mean we don't rehearse? We'll get to that. What it comes down to is, like, there are bands for whom those particular individuals are part of the brand, right? And there are bands for whom no specific individual is part of the brand, including you, for the audience, probably. And both are valid brand choices, right? And you've leaned into a particular one that has given you a lot of success because you've kept yourself, you've managed to have that brand be what it is. Like, you're going to get an amazing show at the VAM Band. Who knows who's going to be on stage? Who cares? It's going to be an amazing show. And that's the brand and what you deliver and what people can count on from you. And you've had a ton of success with that. So I love that it's a great example of the variety and flexibility and breadth of what a brand can be. And it's just, it's awesome. It's really awesome.
Yeah. And I want to be clear that up until this band, I've been only in the other kind of band.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of my projects were original bands before VAM Band. So I think that is more conducive to having the same lineup, because with covers, it's almost like a language. Now that I've met all these, what I'll call top 40 musicians, these players, they know 75% of the repertoire coming in for the most part. And typically that extra 25% is just what our band does uniquely, any specific mashups, any special endings or whatever. That's the stuff that I'm helpful to explain to them and get them up to speed on. But I don't want to imply that doing a band any other way is not as good as my band. There are infinite ways of how to run a business, and a band is a business. I just wanted to share how this philosophy has been helpful and has been huge for our growth, especially since we've come back from the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
That forced break was when I first delved into, should my band be on in-ears and should my band use tracks? And those two changes, which were again inspired by your guys talking about it, and Adam, you've been on them I think since before the podcast, but Dan, your conversion was like on air.
Yep.
And witnessing that was enough for me to say, you know what, I need to try this with my band. Like, this is the way of the future. There's no doubt. And the only thing that was standing in my way was a little bit of technical understanding and figuring and getting a new mixer that had more auxiliary outputs. So I could, at first I only had 4, so I made my bassist and drummer share a mix and they were both not happy. So, and eventually I sold that and reinvested this music money that I make into a new mixer. And now we have 8 outs and everybody has their own mix. They can mix it on their phone. It's really flexible, and what the in-ears does is allow me to have cue tracks playing along with our tracks the entire show. So every change in a song has a woman in our ear saying intro 2 3 4, bridge 2 3 4, and that helps so that anybody new coming in, as long as they know the chords, as long as they know their parts, they don't have to worry so much about memorizing the arrangement, because they're going to be guided through it by this automated conductor. That's how I think of the cues and the click track. It's like the conductor of an orchestra, that I'm conducting it, but I've done the programming beforehand. So I don't have to use my MD mic the whole time to guide people through. That's how I started doing it. And it was very annoying.
I'll bet.
And eventually I was like, I have to find a better way. And I've just iterated on this idea and this philosophy over the years. And again, a lot of the input from you guys and from the Slack community, I've just continued to grow this thing where now our lyrics are completely automated. We have a teleprompter that goes along with every song. And our production has just stepped up because I also have automated our light show partially. I'm in the process of doing that right now. So that, you know, our lights sort of change on the beat because the BPM is coming from my DAW with the tracks. So it's really cool, and I just love the growth of it. I love pontificating about new gear to get and where the project can go in the future based on all your guys' feedback. I really do. I just want to express how much I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. It's amazing to see the path you've taken. It's like your, those little toy cars you like pull back until they click and then they zoom off. I feel like we clicked you a couple of years back and now you've zoomed off.
So you've gotten to do some really crazy stuff, and your group is in a very interesting part of the country where some things are not possible. So one of the first real interesting side quest things I felt like we as a community were a part of was your band was asked to like get on a private plane and play on on an island out in the Caribbean.
That's right.
And I remember, what kind of practical questions should I be asking these people?
Right.
Yeah, I've never flown anywhere for a gig, and that's been the only one so far, but it was such an incredible experience. The only downside was that on this island, it's called Cat Cay in the Bahamas. It's a private island, and they have no gear there. So if they want a band, they have to literally fly in the band and the gear. So I had to load up my PA, my subwoofer, all of our instruments onto this little ass plane.
Like private planes, right? Like small.
Plane,
yeah.
They flew us there. They paid us handsomely, and we stayed overnight, free lodging, and then we flew back the next day. So it was like a 24-hour experience. It was a July 4th party for last year. So they flew us in. We played the national anthem and then Party in the USA as like a special thing for July 4th. And then and we had an awesome time. It's so fun playing those kind of parties, and people really appreciate it because they don't normally have music there. And what a cool experience to be able to do with my band. And actually on that gig, I had a brand new bass player and drummer for that gig because my normal guy just couldn't get out of the country and come back. So I just had to find an alternative person for that. And doing those type of gigs with a new lineup, it's anxiety inducing, it's scary. But what I do to prepare my musicians is that I use the tracks, right? And I'm not just using karaoke version. That's where I source most of the tracks. I'm not just downloading from their website. What I do is I bring in the entire stems, every single track separated, and then I typically adjust the arrangement and I speed up the BPM a few, because I find that recorded versions versus live versions, you want a little bit of oomph in the beat.
Definitely.
When you're playing it live.
Yes.
So I make those adjustments, and then I print MP3s of various versions of every song minus each instrument. So for example, the drummer, I'll give him a version of every song minus the drums for him to practice to, and then a version of the song with the drums 6 dB louder, so that he can use that as a learned version. And I do that for every musician. I have a Google Drive. I every time we bring in a new song, I go through this process. I dump the files into my Google Drive, and I send out the links to all musicians along with the set list for that specific show. Then they know exactly how to come prepared. There's no rehearsal necessary, because if they practice to those tracks, that's the exact arrangement we're going to play live, the exact tempo. There's no trickery, there's no curveballs. And again, the cues are going to guide everybody through.
Are the cues in those training tracks too?
That's correct.
Yeah. So they're learning the cueing along with learning their parts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm a lover of improvisation, and I try to squeeze it into our top 40 live shows in pockets, in songs where it's fitting. I'll take a solo that was already there and I'll double it or triple it, and I'll pass it around. I play with a saxophone player a lot. He's incredible. I'll pass a solo to him as much as possible. He rips it, and I have various versions of those songs. So for example, a song like Brick House, right? Works every time, and I have 4 versions of that one song with different length solos, right? So I have a version with just one solo just for guitar. That's 2 solos. If I'm a keyboard player, I want a solo, etc. So that on any given show, I can pick and choose the right version. Any given set, if we have a tighter set, I'm going to choose the versions with less solos. I just have allowed my setup to be flexible, and I run everything out of Reaper as my DAW, my digital audio workstation. That's just the one I know how to use. It does all the same things as like Ableton Live can do. You can open up all of the songs in the set. You can move songs around as needed. You can call audibles, all of these various things. So it's not like we're locked into exactly the set list. We can still be flexible live, and having that set up has changed the game. It's changed it. Our live shows have gotten so much tighter, so much better because of this setup. So again, thank you guys for guiding me to the light. I needed it. And like I said, coming from original bands, it wasn't as possible, because you would have to record, you'd have to use your studio recordings, or you'd have to record your own backing tracks. And having the karaoke version, I actually want to say, I think karaoke version is missing out, because they don't have cues on their website. They don't offer cues. I think if they added cues for every track and charged another $1 or something, I think that would be huge, because I think every band that is currently like has to add their own cues manually. And that's a pretty annoying process. I think you guys have been through that. I know Adam talked about it.
When I have, if you're looking for cues, we got them. They're on the website.
Yeah.
I like to use my own. I like to customize them as much as possible, because I think it's fun for the musicians just to hear something weird. And,
all of mine have little Easter eggs in them.
Yeah, I have your underpants pressure one.
Yeah, underwear pressure.
Underwear pressure, yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep it fun.
Got to keep it fun. Well, but listen, I mean, in terms of adding cues, sounds like the small part of your workflow that you're building for maybe as many as 10 players, right? Unique.
I typically focus on 5 instruments.
Yeah.
The core of the band.
Yeah, for sure.
Drum, bass, guitar, keys, vocals.
All right. So for 5 of them, you're making 2 versions each, and then a live version. Maybe with alternations for the number of solos they've got. So this is not a small investment of time.
No, it's taken years and countless hours.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to have a remote day job.
Yeah.
That gives me a little bit of freedom so that if things aren't so crazy busy, I can turn to my personal laptop and knock out some work. And I've gotten into a process where I've like queue all of the rendering of these songs. I'll do it all at once, and then I'll just let it run when I'm doing something else. So I've figured out ways to make the process easier on myself and quicker.
You'd have to. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I don't have that much time.
It's also an interesting situation because you were basically saying like all of this kind of started when the world shut down and it provided you this unique opportunity where you had the margin to systemize all of these different processes so that when you did all the legwork and you got all of it done up front so that now when you bring somebody into the fold, all of the resources are available to them. And so they come into this very cushy situation where you have set them up to succeed and they feel taken care of. Like it's goodwill on a huge level.
Yeah.
And again, more influence, more people choosing to take your dates over other people's dates because they know that they're going to have all the stuff they need to do a good job.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine people coming up to you like, hey, I heard what you're doing. I want to be part of it. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of just starting to happen, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've had to really plant those seeds for some time to see the dividends. And truthfully, it's just within the last maybe 6 months that people are now reaching out to me. Hey, I heard about your band.
Yeah.
You need X, Y, Z. I'm available. That's really cool because now I'm not looking on Craigslist anymore.
Right.
I'm done with that place.
And you're getting quality candidates because it's happening in network. Like the other musicians, the other kind of hot shots in your area are going, hey, there's this thing, there's this guy, you need to go check them out. And the other thing that I like, because I get that a fair amount as well. But the cool thing about that is that when other bands get into a pinch, then you become an additional resource. They're like, hey, I need this thing filled to get, who do you know? And then you can, that's that abundance mindset that garners goodwill with your competition, quote unquote.
Yes. They're not my competition. Awesome. I'm really big on this, and I just want to elaborate on that point just for a second. These other bands, they are my friends. They're not competition. We all lift each other up. And I've been really helpful to a lot of other bands in my local space. Just yesterday, actually, I sent a list of about 5 singers to a friend of mine that's a drummer. He's having struggles booking a singer. She plays in like 5 bands. So I shared a list of him with him. And that's the same with a couple other band leaders that I'm in touch with locally. And that's partly why I appreciate your guys' group so much, especially the Patreon Slack community, because it's band leaders from all over the country experiencing all kinds of different issues, whether they're local problems or just some of the same things we all go through, just dealing with band members, dealing with venues, dealing with agents, all of those crazy things that we go through. And then I end up just complaining to my wife and she doesn't want to hear it anymore. I get to now, talk to you guys, my internet friends and my local band leaders. And I just want to, you mentioned that thing about in-network recommendations. At this point, I'm meeting some of the best musicians I've ever played with right now. Like literally this month, last month, I'm playing with several new people in the group that are the best people that I've played with. And part of the reason the lineup was so modular in the beginning is because I have this vision. I have this like Rick Rubin-esque vision of what I want to hear from my band, right? The same way he produces other bands in the studio, I produce my own band. And I haven't quite heard what I want to hear. We've touched it, we've tapped on it, but I know that if I continue to follow this vision, this noise that I hear in my head, if I keep getting closer and closer to that, and I know I'm eventually going to get there and sustain there. And then maybe the lineup won't be so modular. I don't know. I'm going with the flow on this, and I'm waiting until. I talked to another band leader about this, and he was a guy that hired me as a bass player when I was not in a band before I started VAM Band. And he told me something about how he started off being modular the same way. He would hire whoever he could, and then eventually settled on a killer lineup because he trusted everybody. They all did great jobs. And I don't know, maybe I will end up in that place, and I'll come back on in a year or whatever, and I'll say, don't do modular, you know.
Or treat it like
joking
several years of auditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just want to comment on, I want to, you know, since I'm on the podcast, this is my first podcast, by the way.
Doing great.
Hope I'm doing all
Awesome.
right. And thank you. And I want to get this out there. I want to get this idea out there. Okay. Networking is worth something, right? Networking is worth money to me. And what I've tried to instill in the people who I deal with and in my community, when a musician, like just recently, a bass player that I wanted to hire wasn't available for a date. And I said, hey, do you know anybody else? He recommended another bass player. And that other bass player is playing the gig with me this Friday for the first time. And I send $20 to that guy who hooked me up with the recommendation. And it's not much. It's not making anybody rich. But to me, that just little gift, that bonus, whatever you want to call it, I think that is something that should be like widespread, because most people will just say, oh, thank you, and go on with their life. But that networking has taken me, you know, several years now, and really 20 years of my life being a musician to know all these people, to be able to help other bands out when they're in a pinch. And that's worth something to me. And it's not like I'm going to hold somebody hostage for $20, but I just think it's just be generous. If somebody helps you out, if they help you out and help your band play a gig that you would have had to cancel, send $20 their way. Just hook it up. And just also on that note, send Adam and Dan $20. Send me $20.
See how we wrapped that all up there. That was pretty nice. No, but listen, I'll say that is certainly the case. That networking, a lot of people do networking wrong, which is like, how do I meet a bunch of people so that I can maximize my opportunity?
Yep.
Networking is best done when you're looking for what you can contribute to people. How can I connect? You know, this person, I just met this person and they need a thing. And, oh, I know a guy who's got that thing. And you connect those two people. Networking begins with generosity. And then once you are known as someone who is a connector and a part of the community you have connections broadly across the community, then, you know, it starts to pay dividends for you. But you're not there for, that's not the point of networking.
Exactly. That's the eventual outcome of generosity.
Yeah, there's a term that
Kindness.
Gary Vaynerchuk uses. He's got a book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. And it's the give before you ask.
Yeah.
So basically you have to get your licks in before you go in for the big shot.
Yeah.
But in a generous way.
Yeah.
So if you give more than you take, then you're going to, if karma is real and karmic debt is real, then you want to have as little of it as possible. So
Yeah.
And that story I just shared earlier about the drummer that I hooked up with the vocalist, just like the next day, he needed somebody for a sound gig, and he just knows I do sound for my band. He said, hey, this is an easy gig. They pay $400. Can you do it? It's on a Sunday when I wouldn't normally have a gig anyways. I can always use the extra money. And that's only because I was kind to this guy and generous with other things.
Right.
So it comes back to you. That's the universal way. And if you're stingy, that comes back to you too. So just, just be kind, be generous with other bands. Like I said, this is not competition. There are enough gigs for everybody. Trust me. It's abundance.
absolutely.
And on that note, I want to make sure that we hit some of these Patreon Slacker questions. I don't know how we're doing on time, but
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That we don't really ask this enough, and I feel like we're kind of doing people listening a disservice, because we've just talked through a lot of stuff that you have pulled off, and it is truly impressive. What hasn't worked? What is an idea that you had, or a system that you have tried to implement that just didn't work, didn't pan out?
So you guys used to have a segment called Gigs from Heck.
Yeah.
And,
Been a while.
And I was thinking about that. I had one just recently. So before I had this lyric automation system set up, I was trying to use my phone. I was trying to use an app on my phone to Bluetooth. I was trying to Bluetooth from my laptop to an app on my phone to pull up the lyrics. And it would work like 92% of the time. But that 8% is enough to derail a show if I have to like restart a track to try to get it going and it's not working. And then one time, iPhone will update their iOS, and then the dongle that I had used prior, I didn't think to check that before the next show. And and I plugged it in and the dongle wouldn't work. And like I had no service. I couldn't get the update. It was very, sometimes things go wrong tech wise. And to be honest, I don't really have much of a backup plan. That's one thing I want to like get better at, is like to have a plan B, because I'm pretty much trusting my laptop. We played a gig last weekend and it was super windy, like crazy windy. And I always keep my laptop on a stand next to me. I try not to touch it during the show as much as possible. I have it automated so I can send MIDI from my Helix guitar pedal board to the DAW.
Nice.
So that I can start tracks by just stepping on a pedal on the Helix.
It's
so
killer.
If I step on, I can change
He's got his,
an example.
yeah, his mic is going through the Helix. For those of you who are hearing this for the first time, we had a sample of that before.
Yeah, I just had to do that on the show.
For sure.
So I have my Helix pedal board, which I use. It is the hub of my show. I use it for my guitar, but I also use it as an interface and as a MIDI sender to my DAW. So it gets complicated. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff a few years ago. I've just learned YouTube is an invaluable resource. If anything you need to know, search it on YouTube and go to YouTube University and figure it out. Try some things. It's not going to work all the time at first, but if you continue on, you'll figure it out. And I figured out how to use my Helix, which is another suggestion that you guys made back in the day. You were like talking about this Helix guitar pedal board. I'm like, what is this thing? I gotta try it out. It's pretty expensive, $1,200 or so, but I bought it on the Sweetwater deal. I paid it off over a few years from the income that I make from my music. It pays for itself. All of my music gear pays for itself. That's the beautiful thing. And so I use that system, and sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes the tech doesn't work. Sometimes it's not my fault at all. It's like something going on with the mixer, some kind of internal routing. We had an issue at the last show. Oh, so I told half a story where my laptop was on the stand. It was super windy. And on set break, I walked off stage and my laptop was playing break music. And all of a sudden the break music stopped, and I looked over, my laptop's on the floor, and a huge gust of wind had come along. And I have a 2012 MacBook Pro. It's barely hanging on. It's what I'm using right now for the podcast. It's what I use for everything I do musically and video wise. It's barely hanging on. So this thing took a major spill in between our two sets. And I was so worried that it would not work for set
Yeah,
two,
the chills. I can't imagine. Oh God. I mean, my hair's standing up on my neck just thinking about it.
Yeah, I restarted that thing and it was back up and running perfectly, and I'm very thankful that it's hanging on. If anyone wants to donate a new laptop, I am, again, at VanPay on Venmo.
There you go. I have a question about something you just said. So you use your Helix as an interface. So do I understand right that you're playing, your playback is coming out of the computer into the Helix and through one of the outs of the Helix to the mixer? 4
of the outs. So I use coming in, I'm connecting via USB to my Helix, what I'm doing right now with a microphone.
Yeah.
And my stereo tracks are coming out of 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 is my click and my cues channel. I separate those so that different musicians can have what they want as far as click and cue volume in their in-ears.
But the whole thing,
all of that is running through my Helix.
The whole thing's coming out of the Helix. I've never heard of anyone doing that. That's killer.
I hadn't either, to be honest, but I just started playing, like, the Helix is so powerful.
Yeah.
I heard you guys talk about how like you really kind of just use one patch when you do it. I don't have a different patch for every song, but there are about half of our set I have a different guitar patch. So I have a lot of unique tones for special songs. There's one song, like we do Crazy by Gnarls Barkley mashed up with Rolling in the Deep by Adele.
Sure.
And I do like the Tom Morello pitch whammy effect,
Mm-hmm.
I do that with my guitar, that crazy Tom Morello effect, and that's only available if I have like separate patches. So my DAW is sending a MIDI signal to the Helix to switch patches on certain songs, and then I have like a basic patch which I use for like half the set that just is flexible and I can use for anything.
I don't know about you, Adam, but my mind is blown.
Yeah, again, we only kind of like set the thing in motion because I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah, no, that's
and I'll tell you this, I literally DM'd somebody else on the Creston from Alt 95 because he was talking about how he was leveling all his because he looks patches, and I DM'd him. I was like, well, the turns have tabled. It's my turn to ask you a bunch of questions on how to do something.
Seriously.
And he was very generous with his wisdom. So
Oh, how the
So
turntables.
on that note of leveling, I'm not perfect with it, but I keep my big volume knob activated so that I can just step down and tweak it up or down
Right.
Yeah.
if needed.
Yeah.
And I also have my wah-wah set as a volume, reducer if
Yeah.
I need.
Yeah.
So I have options when it's not perfect. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not, just to be honest.
Yeah.
all right, so you want to do the Patreon Q&A rapid fire to wrap up
Rapid fire. Let's
wrap
do
up
it.
the episode?
Yes. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having me. This is super fun to get into the nerdy stuff, the nitty gritty.
Oh, yeah.
Great having you, man.
Talk about
You
music.
really are like the greatest expression of what we hoped we might have happen out there in the world. So
You created a monster.
well,
Yeah,
listen,
Deal with it.
You're
it's
making us look good for the most part.
that's really true.
Yeah.
It's really really satisfying to have you on because of all that you've accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, that's why I created the outro bumper for you guys, because I'm not the richest guy in the world, and I've been, giving you guys a few coins every month for a while now. But you guys were doing this thing where you wanted your Patreons to kind of contribute by doing an outro bumper. So I forget who it was, but somebody had done an initial one, and I was like, oh, this would be fun.
It was Runnels.
Yeah.
It was the other Adam.
It was Reynolds. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Adam. So I one day just was like, you know what? Let's have fun with this. I created you guys an outro bumper, but I now want to get to the reason I'm really here. All right.
Here
Now,
it is.
Patreon
Here it is.
slackers, you listeners, listen up right now. All right. I want off the outro bumper. I'm done with it. I never wanted to do it in the first place. It's like, I owed Adam and Dan some money, and I couldn't afford it, and they were like, we'll let you off the hook if you do this outro bumper for us. And no, truthfully, it's annoying
Yeah.
to hear my voice. I want to hear somebody else. I'll send you guys the script. I still have it in my email. It's like, you guys are one of my favorite podcasts, and then I hear my voice at the end of it. It's nice to hear you.
There's
Here we
one
go,
small
Adam from
edit to
Bandleader.
make. There's one small edit that Adam managed.
The new strain.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is my plea. This is my begging. Somebody, come through. Give these guys a new outro bumper. They deserve it. Tell some bad jokes. Shout out the the Instagram handles. Which,
Yeah,
by the
shout
way,
yourself
I'll
out.
throw mine in right now. What was that?
Yeah, shout
Please,
yourself
let's
out.
do it.
Yeah.
That-
So my Instagram for the band is @vam.band, and we already went over that's VAM.band. My personal music page is @Adam Moskowitz Music, and I won't spell that for you, but you'll find it.
In the show notes.
I'll try and spell it
Yeah,
right in the show
sure.
notes. Yeah.
There you go. And I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook. Find me on all those. Find the band. Follow what we're doing. Leave some comments. All that stuff is free. So I try to every 6 months or so in the Patreon Slack, I'm like, everybody drop your social handles so we can all kind of
Yeah.
follow each other
Yeah.
in the not the real world, but the social media world, and we can kind of see what each other's bands are doing in the public eye. So yeah, I want off the outro bumper, please, I'm begging you guys.
Somebody.
I'm loving it.
And yeah, and now we get to the Patreon questions. So I'm gonna go a little bit rapid fire, and first we have from Jason Adler from After 7 in Tucson. Again, thank you for the nomination for bringing me on to the show. I'm really having a good time here. So he asked, how do you handle jealousy or arguments? Does that ever happen between band members? Maybe some people don't get hired and they're wondering what's up? Why aren't you into me? And here's my thought process on it, okay? I'm married to my wife, okay? I'm not married to my bandmates. I love them all. I really do. But I enjoy variety in that way. And sometimes I just want to bring somebody new in because I think they might have a flavor that I'll enjoy and then I think our crowds will enjoy. So, there hasn't really been any jealousy. I have had to have some difficult conversations at times. Sometimes I had a guy that just couldn't get his time management together, couldn't get, he actually showed up to several gigs after Downbeat, which to me is like, no, that's not cool. And as band leader, that reflects vividly upon myself. And I work so hard to get this band to have a good reputation, to have one guy bring it down. So I no longer work with that guy. he didn't just get bumped to the bottom of my list. He got knocked off the list, and he was great contributor to the band, and I had to let him go. And I typically don't fire people often. I just bump them later on in the list, you know, and then maybe they don't get a call, but once a year, whatever it is. So next, we got from Dennis Paget of Smoke and Gun, which is in the Carolinas. I'm not sure north or south, but
he's in Charlotte area.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So he asked about sub routine and scheduling. So I'll share very quickly how I handle dealing with so many different people, right? So I have a system because I believe that being organized is like a superpower. So in my day job, I am a financial analyst. I deal with spreadsheets all day long. So
there it is.
I utilize that skill that I have.
Yeah.
And I attack the band situation with that skill. So I schedule, and there's 3 tools I use. There's texting, there's Google Calendar, and there's my spreadsheet, my tracking spreadsheet. So the way a gig works is I book a date if I'm available, right? And then I create a new tab on my spreadsheet with that date. I figure out based on the gross pay how much I can pay each individual musician after, you know, I take an overhead percentage fee and like a band leader type of percentage fee. Everything's percentage based. And not everybody makes the exact same amount. I want to be clear that I believe that different people will bring different value. Different people have different time requirements as far as setting up versus breaking down and all that. So what I do is I send a text to each person, right? I send a official VAM Band offer with a particular emoji, right? That way that I can always search that emoji and know that it'll bring up all of my offers, right? It's just a little trick, keeps me organized.
Genius.
And then once they confirm via text, right? Then I add them to my Google Calendar for the band. That sends like a formal invite for the date. It goes on their calendar. And in the show notes, I have all the details as far as load in, time, etc. Everything they would need to know. And then I typically will send an email the week of with show info. So I'm like the day of coordinator. Like I said, I do everything A to Z and then some. So I send an email the week of that has all of the details. Again, it has the set list. It has the time I expect everybody to arrive, the time we'll sound check, and the time we have downbeat. So that's how I keep track of it all. And then on my spreadsheet, once I lock in a musician, I highlight it blue, a certain color. Once I lock in all the musicians for a specific gig, and Adam, I've heard you one time, like you forgot to have a bass player on a gig. Like
Yep.
I make sure that doesn't happen for me, because when I have the full band locked in for a gig, I turn that tab blue, and then I know I'm good on that date. And then once the pay comes in for that date, I highlight everybody green as I pay them out, and then the tab gets turned green once I'm done. You know, that gig is now complete. So that's my process, A to Z.
It's a good process.
Cool.
That's terrifying.
No,
Everything you just said.
That's amazing.
I'm so scared.
That's amazing.
Well, it's mostly just texting. That part's not that hard. And the spreadsheet, you know, you created a spreadsheet. We've shared on the Patreon Slack sort of the different ways our bands divide income. You know, some bands just do an even split. I get it. It's hard to do math. Not for me. I'm a spreadsheet guy. A bit nerdy with the tracking of it all. I'm good with using a percentage system. And everybody, you know, I pay my people well. I make sure I have a certain minimum. I never go under. My people know that. And, you know, certain musicians say, hey, I don't want to play for under 200. Cool. I'll note that down. I won't offer you any gigs that pay less than that. It's a cool system. I love it.
It's amazing.
So next question we had was from Mark Budwit of the Cheese Doodles in Wisconsin, which I thought was a funny name. And they were in Wisconsin, so it works. He asked, what's the pros and cons of this modular lineup? And we've got into that a bunch, but I'll just share a couple more notes that we didn't get into earlier. I'll start with the cons, okay? Explaining to old school type of agents and clients that don't understand why there's a different singer in one video versus another video. Sometimes I have to figure out the best way to communicate that. You know, not everybody understands or appreciates the pros of a modular lineup. So they think, oh, it's just a bunch of subs and that's not cool. They're not going to be as good. No, that's not the scenario with my band. We're just as good, if not better, with certain musicians on board. So that's a con. And another con we have is band photos. All right. So
I bet.
the way I do it is that whoever's on any gig, that is VAM Band that day. And that's the band photo. And I'm really diligent about like tagging all of the musicians that are going to be on any given gig. I do it on Instagram, on the Facebook event. I make sure that I'm very transparent with our audience, that if they're coming expecting to see somebody specific, I want them to know before they get there and be disappointed. I want them to know, hey, VAM Band's coming with a new singer this show. Maybe they'll be great. Let's go check it out. So it can be both a bonus and a negative, but sometimes it's a little difficult when like a venue's like, hey, send me a band picture. And I'm like, yeah, well, I try to just focus on the singer, like who's the singer.
Yeah.
It's kind of the face of the band. And I'll share that picture, even if the rest of the lineup is different. It doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Nope.
So a couple pros. I've never had to cancel a gig. It's never happened with the VAM Band. And I've had individual musicians have life circumstances, somebody had a death in the family, they had to cancel within like 48 hours of a gig. And I was able to get another bass player, for the show. We didn't have to cancel. So that's definitely a pro, huge pro. And some of the other pros I talked about earlier, so I won't repeat them, but one I didn't mention is that song selection, right? So we have a repertoire of about 90 tunes right now, and that's grown hugely over the last year, about 34 songs added over the past year alone, because we've had new members come in, especially new singers, and they're like, hey, I can do these 25 songs, but let's add some new songs. And I'm all about expanding the repertoire. It allows us to have a lot of options for different kind of gigs. Sometimes we play for an older crowd. They want more of a Motown, funk, classic vibe. And sometimes we have a younger crowd and they want to hear the stuff that's on the radio, that's within the last 10 years. And we can now, because we have a bigger repertoire, we can do both of those things. And that's really cool. And it's my goal this year to get over 100 songs. That's just like a personal vision for myself. And again, that just gives us a variety of options. So, and I shared with you guys the bigger vision. I actually have a question for you guys before we get into like the
Let's go.
last two rapid fire questions. So tribute bands, right?
Yep.
So I have an idea for a tribute band, but I was wondering with you two, you have your projects, your cover projects. If you were to do a tribute band that started tomorrow, what would be the artist? Adam, go first.
So for me, I don't have like a particular artist because I don't feel like there's one that's that influential that I could like do a good job on. But if there was a market for like an arena rock tribute, so like that would do stuff from like Foreigner and Boston, I would sing the crap out of that.
You would. Yeah.
And do it like Yacht Rock Review does it. So like dress up like you are an arena rock band from that era with the outfits and the gear and like how fun would that be?
Yeah. Have you played with horns with members only?
No, it's either been a budget thing or a lineup thing. It's really hard to find. I feel like horn players are like keyboard players in this town. They're apparently everywhere, but like they're never available.
Gotcha. Dan, you're in the hot seat.
Well, there are a few. I can't do one. I think I can do three.
That's fine.
I would crush a Police/Sting tribute.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. As a teenager, I built my voice around Sting. His very top I can't quite get to, but most everything else I can do a very credible Sting. The other one is Talking Heads. I'm not aware of really any Talking Heads tributes.
I played with one a very, very long time ago.
All right. Well,
and then the Yacht Rock guys do a Stop Making Sense show every year.
Oh, nice. With the lamp, I want to do the lamp.
Love that.
It's very, very like
amazing.
I'll send you dates.
Amazing. I do have a third, and it came from a dream. I had a dream one time that I was in a Blues Brothers tribute act called 106 to Chicago.
Great name.
All right. And I woke up from that dream. I rolled over and got my phone and went to Google Domains and registered the domain 106tochicago.com just to be ready for the day when that show happens.
Love it. All right. The reason I was asking is because I have an idea for a tribute band, And the issue that I have with tribute bands is that not all artists have enough hits to sustain a full set or two sets.
That's a good point.
With just one band, one artist.
Yeah.
And I saw a French tribute band recently, and I think that's an issue because, they may have 5 to 10 hits, but then what about the rest of your show? Your filler, and I don't want to ever play filler. So my idea was, I like the idea of tributes to multiple artists or multiple bands, like you guys both mentioned a few, and I like that. And if you can combine the Police and Talking Heads into a single tribute, maybe there's enough hits between the two of them to fill out a solid set.
Maybe.
My idea, I love Bruno Mars, I love Prince, and I love The Weeknd, and I think maybe someday I'll build up enough of each one of their songs to kind of do a tribute to all three of them at once. And I think there's enough hits there to work with. But like I said, with one band, sometimes it's a struggle to pull up the material, and it's a lot of B-sides type of stuff. And so the next question we had was from Mr. Mike Schulte.
We're doing those ones. Very good.
Of the Pork Tornadoes, of course. And they're from Iowa. So he asked, who do I like better, Adam or Dan?
He was really stirring the pot pretty hard.
Was.
I know you're all waiting for this. And all I have to say is, Adams are taking over the cover band scene. Get used to it.
Yeah,
sorry, Dan.
I am used to it.
Same question for you, Dan. Who do you like better, Adam or Adam?
I like Adam best. Adam's my very favorite.
Correct answer.
Yeah.
He asked, what cover band do I hate the most in my area? Again, trying to stir the pot.
Right? What a troublemaker.
The truth is, I'm really not much of a hater. As you've heard from me over this episode, like, I'm a big supporter of other bands. I love going to other band shows and just helping them out in whatever way possible. That being said, I'll just comment that what I dislike about some bands that I see is that, or let me say it another way, is some bands teach me what not to do, right?
Yep.
A lot of bands inspire me and they give me great ideas. Like the tribute band I was just talking about, they had video screens along with their show. And that was really cool. And I do want, like, I have the lyric teleprompter, which is one video screen, but I want a crowd-facing video screen as a second monitor. And that's something I want to build towards, along with automating my lighting. Those are like bigger projects that I'm always sort of iterating on in the background and just kind of moving towards that goal, even though I know it's far away. I'll get there one day if I just put in the work, whatever time every day or just continually. I know that I'll get there. And it's the same thing with the band. It's like, you're successful as long as you continue doing it. Like, that is the definition of success. We're playing shows, we're having fun. Of course I want to achieve more things, but like, it's successful right now. So sorry, Mike, I'm not going to name a local band I hate. and he asked, who is my least favorite member of the Slack channel? And that one's super easy. It's Mike Schulte.
Obviously.
Because, and I'll tell you why. It's like, there can only be one massive beard in the Slack group. And
it's the Moskowitz beard.
Shots fired.
I will, Mike Schulte, I'll put this out to you. If this conference idea, becomes to fruition, I challenge you to a drum off, all right? Wow. And whoever wins this drum off gets to keep their beard, all right? Let's put it that way.
Wow.
That is, that's, you heard it here first, folks.
All right, we're building that into the conference schedule. Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I answered all the questions. We got one more. So from Creston Altzel from Alt 95 in Cleveland, which we just celebrated that they had a huge show. They were one of the bands that you guys coached here on Cover Band Confidential, and he asked about some automation in our show. I've gotten into some of that over the course of this episode, but I'll just talk about the lighting for one moment. So I use LightKey, which is a app on Mac, and lighting historically has been like pretty difficult to program. I just kept things on like random fades or sound settings in the past because it just seems so daunting to program a light show and get like a controller, and I just couldn't figure it out. So LightKey like simplifies it. It does things in like an Apple kind of way where you can visualize. It has all the colors. You can, again, I learned on YouTube how to use it. And basically what I do is I just send MIDI notes from my DAW, and I can just put them on like the beginning of each section so that the lights switch to a new patch. And right now I just have it like random. I just have like 100 random patches, and then the patch will switch as we go to a different section of the song. It's an improvement from the just randomized settings. And hopefully in the future, I hope to have like a custom automation lighting for each and every song. That's a bigger project again, but I'm a nerdy dude. I love spending time on this. I'll get there eventually. So
and what kind of lighting hardware do you have?
Okay, so I have like 3 of these ADJ light bars that go in the front of the stage. I'm kind of using it to light me right now, weirdly. And then I have like 2 4-bar setups that I put on each side of the stage.
So Chauvet's.
I have one Chauvet and one ADJ.
Gotcha.
Don't rock in the dark.
Your band sounds great.
You guys used to be sponsored.
Yeah.
I keep trying to tell you guys, get another sponsor. I'm sponsoring you, but I mean.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's a simple lighting setup. I love lasers, but I just have like cheap ones right now. I would eventually love to have like a Pink Floyd style laser. I do have a haze machine, which is a pretty recent purchase, and that really, for outside gigs, it really adds a lot.
Yeah.
It really sets a vibe on stage. It really just allows the lighting to like become a just like a cool production feature, and it like grabs those light rays really cool. So I definitely recommend a haze machine if you don't have one.
Well, listen, I appreciate the whole story you've told over the last, hour or so of how we've inspired you to do that. I want you to know I'm inspired to dig into my lighting rig, because I have a 4-bar and a gig bar from Chauvet, and I set them on auto, do your thing, whatever, and I forget them. And they're better than nothing, but it's not like anything programmed is happening. And I'm going to dig into that. I appreciate that you've gone from 0 to something about that, and I'm going to follow your example.
Yeah, and again, I just want to, I think we're coming to a close, and I just want to really make the point and like kind of speak for the community. And Adam and Dan, you guys created something from scratch. It has really impacted my life and my band in a positive way. And it's allowed me to like have this sounding board to throw ideas against the wall and kind of figure out what's best for my band. And like I said earlier, there's no one way to do things. I'm experimenting every day. Like I said, if you interviewed me a year ago or a year from now, I'm gonna have a completely different story, and that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. I really encourage people to try things. I encourage you to like think about different aspects of your band's show. Like, it's more than just you bringing your instrument to a show. Like, there's a production aspect that really can enhance what your band is doing. And it's not a huge investment to get there. Like, how much was the 4-bar? It's like a few $100.
Yeah.
And it allows you to have go from like plain no lighting to like, some dynamic energy coming from that. And it feels more like a concert instead of just like playing. So I just encourage people to keep iterating, and you guys have been an inspiration. Some of the listeners and Slack group people and people post in your Facebook group. It's been really inspiring for me. It's allowed me to step up my game, and I just want to thank you. And let's keep doing it. Let's keep pushing each other.
Rock on.
Adam Moskowitz from the VAM Band, thank you so much for being here.
And that's how you rock.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. So great, man. Wow.
It happened.
And that's how you rock more and suck less. Hey listener, this is Adam Moskowitz of the VAM Band out of South Florida. Yes, another Adam. Adams are taking over the cover band scene. Get used to it. Sorry, Dan. On behalf of Cover Band Confidential, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Now I know you want to support this cast, so this is how you do it. You subscribe, you leave a 5-star review, you share this episode with your musician friends, and you throw a screenshot on your story. And you go ahead and you follow the podcast on all their socials. You got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of them. These gentlemen, Adam Johnson of Members Only and Dan Ray of the Clinky Lincolns, have graciously given us vast amounts of great content. So as a thank you, go ahead and send them some green energy on their Patreon. Patreon page. For real, send them some digital coins. And when you do that, you'll get access to the Slack back channel, which is just musicians and band leaders chatting about the craft of being in a performing cover band. The wins! The losses. The behind the scenes goodness. If you play at least once a month for money, all I'm saying is break off a few bucks for your favorite podcast that you always listen to. Any questions, comments, hit up the Facebook group, send a text or voicemail to their hotline. That's 404-491-0910. You can also email coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. If you'd like, you can find my band on Instagram, Facebook at VAM Band. That's VAM Band. Do it. Seriously, I want to see that CBC bump. Or you can find everything you need at vanband.com. We started in 2019. We play funk, pop, soul, R&B, Motown in Southeast Florida. I play guitar and backup vocals at Adam Moskowitz Music on IG. Also follow the CBC host on IG. That's at Adam Patrick Johnson and at Dan Ray Musician. Or visit coverbandconfidential.com for all the goods. I'm gonna go ahead and call it. For Adam Moskowitz in Boca Raton, Florida, that was your outro bumper on Cover Band Confidential. Always be performing!